With respect to 1915, I wrote a letter in 2005 to the then President Kocharyan, and I said in my letter to him that solving historical issues is not primarily a responsibility of politicians. It's at first and primarily something that the historians should do. We should let the historians look into it, research it, and we said that we will open our archives in order for this research to be carried out. I wrote this letter in 2005. There were more than 1 million documents in our archives which were put forth. And if Yerevan has archives, of course they can announce them, and then third countries, if they have them, they too can make those documents available, and the historians can review them, and then we as politicians, after that scientific work, can decide what needs to be done. Because at this point, what's being done is there are lobbies, and then there are some opinions or attitudes which are developed as a result of that. What I'm saying to counter that is that my ancestors have never committed genocide, and this is, in my opinion, not possible. I'm not going to go into the details of why and all the details. There was deportation at the time, and there are very clear documents which show that there were revolts at the time. This was a period of war. There were many difficulties. I'm not going to go into the details. At the time, the administration of the country made a decision for deportation, and I saw some of those documents too, and that's how I know. Those were decisions, and there were decisions taken for deporting people, and those people who speak of genocide, I don't know what documentation they base it on. I explained to you the situation with our Armenian citizens. We do not accept genocide. Let's let the historians look into it, then we should talk about it. So without having had any investigation, without having looked at documents, making statements to these effects, in my opinion, is not proper. To this process of normalization between Turkey and Armenia, this protocol was signed in Switzerland. And the first step was to send this protocol to the parliament, and we have already sent this protocol to the parliament. Now, in the parliament, of course, this has to be discussed in the commissions. Then it comes to the floor of the parliament. And all of that will depend on the approach of the members of the relevant commission, because this can be discussed only if the commission takes it, includes it in the agenda. It will not otherwise be debated. And there are certain connections here which need to be taken into consideration, the first one of which being the relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia. There is at the moment this concern in the parliament, and that's why we call the Minsk group, the United States, Russian Federation and France especially, to move forward in this area. If they can work on the Nagorno Karabagh problem between Azerbaijan and Armenia, which has been ongoing for the last 20 years, and if progress can be made towards a solution to the problem in Nagorno Karabagh, then not only will problems between Armenia and Azerbaijan be resolved, but also there will be a positive contribution to the process between Turkey and Armenia, whereby the parliaments will reflect upon their work the goodwill and progress in the issue of Nagorno Karabagh, and this is what we would like to see happen. And we talk to, whenever I've spoken to President Obama and Medvedev, I've spoken to them about this. I could not speak to President Sarkozy on this, but whenever I've spoken with President Obama and Medvedev, I have communicated this message, and our president actually spoke to President Sarkozy about that, and that's the aim here, is to facilitate the process. And if the Minsk group and those three countries can move forward in this area, then they will have completed their work over the last 20 years on a high point. The third question is about economic cooperation between Turkey and the United States. Well, we have such freedom of the press in Turkey that the president, the prime minister, their families can be criticized in any way and every way. They are completely free to do that, and no one, and I say in any and every way. When I say that, I mean, I'm talking about insulting as well. According to them, they really direct insults. I'm not saying criticism. My upbringing doesn't allow me to explain this to you, but there are insults, and if you consider them as being freedom of the press, well, then, you know, our understanding, we don't see eye to eye. But criticism, yes, criticism is, I agree with criticism, but there is insults. And I understand that there's a lot of lobbying going on here, too, about this issue of freedom of the press. The issue relating to this media group you mentioned is not about freedom of the press. It's about the Ministry of Finance carrying out its work within its own area, which is taxes. And this is about a difficulty, an issue relating to taxes. I may have to once again repeat an example from the U.S. I know that here in the U.S. paying taxes is very important, and evading taxes is a very serious situation in the U.S. And the Ministry of Finance in Turkey, too, carries out routine investigations, audits. I don't interfere with what they do. They do their routine work. They go and investigate records. And if they see that something is not proper, then they do whatever is necessary. And we cannot intervene in that. But if the U.S. is telling us to, then if that is what was discussed in Congress, or whether it was members of Congress, I don't know who suggested that this should be done, then we should perhaps talk about the actual facts of the case. But we have to understand that this kind of lobbying is not the way to question freedom of the press in Turkey, because I think freedom of the press in Turkey is perhaps freer than the press in the U.S., much more so, in my opinion.